live on a Thursday. It's the 19th of March here inside the vault. And partner, you and I are on the road, but the show does not stop. It is regularly scheduled programming, and it's great to be with you guys on the 19th here in March 2026, coming up on a month out from the NFL draft. And that is part of what we're going to be discussing today. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. If you could like the video on the way in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership. Those have already come in today, thanks to Douglas H. Brown Sr. and others. We'll get to those coming up in just a bit. Sarah, Daniel Jeremiah, former Ravens scout, turned NFL Network draft analyst, linked for the second time a certain wide receiver to Baltimore at 14. And the reason why is interesting because it has to do with a new component, a new member of the Ravens coaching staff. We'll tell you what all that means coming up. The Ravens have lost, and I would say, willingly lost. It's a business-wise, but a core special teamer, fan favorite in free agency who'd been with the organization for 5 years. Tony Jefferson's landed elsewhere, but in the AFC with a familiar opponent, and a number of other things, including in 20 minutes time, Derek Coleman from All 22 Film Analysis. He's going to drop by, Sarah, to one, unveil his new database that he's fired up about, and also talk a little bit about what the Ravens are getting in Trey Hendrickson. So we'll dive into the film room with him as we always do. And that'll be that. So great to see you. Off we go in our remote, undisclosed locations.
Oh, I know you're in New York and I'm in Dallas, so that's good. Good. We're both all over the country, but like you said, I love it, though. No matter where we are, the show always goes on. And what also goes on is while the NFL world keeps talking about the Ravens and Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson, we're going to continue on to the draft. We have addressed all of that. And I think that, it's time to look forward and see what the Ravens will do with their number 14 pick now that they have it back, now that Trey Hendrickson is back in Las Vegas. But, Bobby, it's interesting because you're right. Daniel Jeremiah has done mock draft 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And then he does some fun ones on his show every once in a while, Move the Sticks. We're going to kind of hit up both angles of that. But now we're back to 3.0, and he's got the same guy that he picked at 1.0 for the Ravens. And it's not an offensive lineman. It's not a defensive lineman, even though those are some of the biggest Ravens needs. But they also do have an underrated need at wide receiver. And that's where he comes in here, bringing back for the second time wide receiver out of Arizona State, Jordan Tyson. And I think I'm going to let you take it from here because I know you listened to Daniel Jeremiah and his reasoning for pushing Tyson to the Ravens for the second time.
Yeah. So just kind of a reminder on who this wide receiver is. You mentioned he transferred to Arizona State where he spent 23 through last season. Got his collegiate career started at Colorado in 2022. We're talking about a two-time first-team All-Big 12 player in 24 and 25. So his final 2 seasons at Arizona State, he was playing at an elite level. He's 6'2", 203. So you continue to talk about the potential complementary piece that the Ravens can have and potentially will have if they go in the route in the direction of Jordan Tyson in the draft. The complementary piece that might provide them up against what they already have in their number one with Zay Flowers. This is a player who has been coached directly and worked closely with Hines Ward, former Pittsburgh Steelers great, who's the wide receivers coach at Arizona State. But I think what's most interesting about this, as I teased off the top, is why Daniel links in this 3.0 edition, and what I'm sure led him to doing so off the top with 1.0 to your point. I think what's most interesting is the Declan Doyle part of the conversation. And in order to do that, we'll play this, and then we'll talk about where this comparison comes from and how it stems from, obviously, what just took place on the offensive side of the ball in year one for Ben Johnson, his right-hand man, Declan Doyle, and one of their rookie wide receivers that, again, is where this comparison is being drawn from. Here is Daniel Jeremiah, courtesy of his most recent podcast.
Up, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. Let's keep the receiver train rolling. They go to Arizona State. Jordan Tyson, and I'll explain this one. Declan Doyle is the new offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, came from Chicago. Now, if you look at what they saw in Luther Burden last year and what they were able to get out of him as the season was rolling along, I think Jordan Tyson's a similar type player, excellent in his releases, excellent at the top of the route. He would be a nice player opposite of Zay Flowers.
Okay, so you see that, and in order to truly, fully understand this, well, who's Luther Burden? And for those that don't follow the Chicago Bears or followed his collegiate career, which was a successful one at Missouri, let's dive in. He's 6 feet, 210 pounds. Again, played at Missouri from 22 to 24. He was a second-round pick by Ben Johnson and company in year one for that program in 2025. He was a first-team All-SEC player in 23 and 24. And let's pull this up and go big screen as well, because Jacob Gibbs took a look at what he did in what was very much his rookie season, given the talent that they had all throughout the offensive side of the ball. He very much was a role player for them, but look at what he did successfully for them in that role. Okay, and what Jacob did was looked at him in the slot, usage in the slot during his rookie season. 108 routes were run. He had a 9.3% first down per route run rate. His yards per route run, just over 2. What about outside the slot? 133 routes were run. He had a 12.8% first down per route run rate. And look at the number. I mean, the numbers are significantly north of what he did inside. The yards per route run, outside 3.26. Again, that trumps just over 2 in the slot. And then he took a look at, Burden outside of the slot with all screen plays removed. 116 routes were run. 13.8% of those were first down per route run rate. That was the number. The yards per route run, just over 3.5. So he concludes, Ben Johnson schemes some yak. So some opportunities for him to do what he can do well after contact for Burden, but mostly the rookie proved capable of winning on the outside. The reason why I read this entire tweet, that's what the Ravens need. They need somebody that can complement Zay Flowers, that can win outside. That's that guy that can go and flourish in an offense where he can develop over time, but he'll be playing right away. And maybe that ends up being a Jordan Tyson, and you can kind of see, to put this all thing together, what Daniel's drawing from here after what Luther was able to accomplish in year one with Chicago.
This would be one of those tests for the Ravens to really just select whoever they have highest on the board and not necessarily their biggest need. And that's not to say that wide receiver isn't an underrated need, since Zay Flowers is going into his 4th year, and they're going to need to get some youth in there, and they also need to get a veteran in there. We've talked about that. And so this is interesting. This is a guy who can play inside and outside. Again, not necessarily the X wide receiver that everybody's talking about and wanting to have, but certainly productive, and he's a reason that he's rated high up on draft boards. And so it would just be tough, just from a needs perspective going into the year, saying, ooh, look at the offensive and defensive lines. This is where the Ravens kind of lost things last year in the trenches. And now you have a guy that's really going to you're going to use in your first round as like either a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, depending on what Bateman can do. So, but long-term, if he projects well, and that's the thing with Daniel Jeremiah. I mean, he knows the Ravens, he knows them well. And sometimes when he comes back to guys, it makes you kind of think a little bit and perk up. But Bobby, he's not the only guy Daniel has projected to the Ravens. When he was on Move the Sticks with Bucky Brooks, this was following the Trey Hendrickson stuff. And there were 2 things that DJ kind of talked about. He talked about how Trey really isn't the typical pass rusher the Ravens go after, because he's more of a finesse guy. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, when he got to number 14, he had some decisions to make. And I noticed, of course, that Venga Ioane was still on the board. And DJ's there, and he made a different pick than he's ever made before for the Ravens, but he also wasn't fully in charge of the draft, and he had this person gone in all of his 3 other mock drafts before the Ravens got on number 14. So here he is when he's teaming up with Bucky Brooks. All of a sudden, a certain cornerback was still available. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because as Bucky Brooks watched DJ get on the clock, he's already like, it's right there. It's right there, DJ. And he's like, what are you thinking? He's like, well, I've been doing Vavenga to the Ravens. Like, it's right there. And instead, DJ goes with LSU cornerback Mansoor Delane. Now, I'm sure a lot of people haven't looked too much into cornerback because it also isn't the greatest Ravens need because, as he said, you have Wiggins there. You're bringing back Marlon Humphrey, and you already brought back Chidobe Awuzie. Now, of course, they need depth, always need depth. And here he is, Mansoor, according to CBS, he's ranked number 12 overall, no matter what position. And then if you ask PFSN's Oliver Hodgkinson, he said, look up the dictionary definition of lockdown cornerback, and you'll find a picture of Mansoor Delane against Florida. So he's a big fan of Mansoor. And then over to the right is Daniel Jeremiah's kind of write-up of him. And he just talks about how consistent he is. One of the most consistent players in this class. He said he makes everything in coverage look easy. He's loose. He's fluid in his change of direction. He can do press coverage. He has the ability to reroute and mirror all over the field. He can do zone, where he's got great instincts and awareness, says DJ. And he goes long stretches without even being challenged by quarterbacks because of his tight coverage. So he also likes how he can locate the ball, makes plays on the ball. He always looks to get involved in run defense. You know, the Ravens would love that, closing space. He's physical. He's a reliable tackler. So overall, says DJ, Delane has the tools to match up with every style of receiver. He can run with the vertical weapons and play physical with the bigger ones. So seeing that he fell in this mock draft, he's like, look, I got to pass up Ioane, even though he's right there, and go with the cornerback, even though, again, it's not the Ravens' greatest need.
I was going to say, the best player available, this philosophy gets tested every year, every round, for the most part. Maybe not every round, but certainly the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And it sure seems like this is not going to be an exception based on how a lot of these projections for the way the board unfolds are starting to kind of be detailed here. Hey, Marlon Humphrey and Cheeto are not going to be a part of this picture for the next 4 years in all likelihood, you know? And
right.
So knowing that, and also knowing that the TJ Tampas, the Robert Longerbeams, the Bilal Kones, hey, all young players who feel like they've got something to prove. And maybe this will be the offseason and the summer and the season for those guys. But not one of them has risen to the top. So I don't know how I could sit here and criticize that pick if Mansoor falls to them at 14. Ozzy's said it his entire career, and he'll continue to say it as someone who still has a significant role behind the scenes within the organization. You can never have enough of them. And if there's one that falls in your lap, and that's the BPA strategy, and you're going to flex your muscle and continue to do what you do in the draft, which is better than most, the great Vern Lundquist, better than most, then you got to take him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's funny is like so many of these people, even Sadiq, who you've been high on, or if somehow Jeremiah Love fell, which happened to Jeff Zrebiec, by the way, in his mock draft, which is crazy. Like, there's plenty of dudes at number 14 that you're like, yeah, the Ravens got a guy, but there's only one first-round draft pick. And so if it doesn't fill a big need, it's always going to make you wanting more or feeling a little bit nervous as you head in to the second day. Now, one other thing that these two did discuss was the impact of Trey Hendrickson. And again, Daniel Jeremiah, I really like listening to his scouting analysis because he was taught by Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens. Like the way he views football, obviously he has his own spin on things and he's been to other places, but the foundation started with the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome. And he knows the Ravens' history of outside linebackers. So I thought it was interesting, and I actually want to ask Coach about this when he comes on in a few minutes, talking about how Trey Hendrickson doesn't really match what the Ravens usually go out and but yeah, I know Coach is in the waiting room. That's a question I have for him. Obviously it helps when you bring in a guy who has led the NFL in sack production, and before he was injured, what did he have, like 16 and a half or 17 and a half 2 years in a row?
Back-to-back 17 and a half, 23 and 24.
Both year back-to-back. So when somebody puts up that type of production, you're willing to break the mold a little bit. But DJ's point still stands in that Minter relies on these heavy-handed physical edge defenders, which they don't have right now, and they'll have to make up for in a different way.
And you just mentioned it. We've got a bunch of questions for Coach coming, and he will be on the program in just a few short minutes from right now, from all 22 film analysis. Should be a great conversation. And what I should have mentioned at the top, and as the live chat pointed out too, just to put one final bow, Sarah, on the Jordan Tyson conversation.
Oh, yeah.
He was marred by injuries at times over his collegiate years. We're talking about torn ACL. We're talking about collarbone issues, which required surgery. We're talking about hamstring lingering setbacks. So, yes, he does come in with not the cleanest bill of collegiate health. And so whether or not that is problematic for the Ravens in terms of their evaluations remains to be seen. They've gone down that route before with injured players in college. We saw it with the David Ojabo on the other opposite side of the ball. It did not work out, but not all of those obviously are mutually exclusive. So,
well, and one other thing, just as you wrapped up, put a bow on the Tyson conversation. One other thing I forgot to point out that DJ said before he picked Delane is he said two things. Number one, boy, Fano would have been fun there, and I would have plugged him in at center. And in one of his mock drafts, he did do that. He did. But he was already taken the pick before by Bucky Brooks. The second thing he said is that when he was talking about Venga, he was like, man, you could also put Venga at center. So, and I know that it's easier for us to say on the outside, oh, just move a guy over. I don't think it's as easy as everyone thinks. That being said, it's also a possibility that the Ravens could look into, because they're always just looking at their best five. You just get 5 dogs on the offensive line, and you can figure out who plays where.
All right, much more draft conversations to come in the weeks ahead. Before we bring on Coach, and we'll sneak through some super chats quickly as well. Primary Residential Mortgage continues to sponsor the program, and if you're getting a tax refund from the IRS this year, maybe you could allow it and have it help you out with covering perhaps a percentage of your down payment in the home buying process, closing costs, paying off debt to boost buying power, maybe even moving expenses. What if you used your tax refund to buy a home instead of spending it? Becomes the question. Your refund isn't just extra cash. It could be your first step towards building long-term wealth. Closing costs and fees may still apply, but if you have questions, reach out to Primary Residential Mortgage today. We've got all their information for you included in the show notes. And if you're listening in real time right now, or watching in real time, I should say, there's a pinned comment in the live chat for you as well. And while you're at it, go ahead and enter yourself into this month's giveaway. It's a $100 gift card to the vaultpod.com/shop. That's our merch line. Go check it out. All that information is in your show notes for you. And let's cook through some of these before we bring on Coach. Ari became a channel member earlier this week. I think Raging Raven did as well, and they're just populating today for whatever reason. So yet again, another welcome to Ari and Raging. And that brings us to Douglas H. Brown Sr., who was in well before we started the program this morning.
Appreciate you, Douglas. He says, so today we are all remote. So it sounds like he's on the road also.
Yeah, you and I both are. That's for sure. Douglas, thanks for the channel membership gifts as well. 5 new VAULTRONs, thanks to Douglas's generosity. And Eric Hill is celebrating 6 months with us. And he says, in case no one tells you today they love you, just know that I do. Driving again. Looking forward to the weekend. Safe travels to all who are traveling. Hashtag stop the 22. And he said he was listening. So he went from dropping in super chat donations to then listening to the program while on the road. So safe travels, Eric. Great to have you with us today. And Gotta Laugh Mom 1313's become our newest channel member. So Gotta Laugh Mom 1313. Gotta love the handle there. I wonder who gave her that nickname.
Gotta
and
laugh.
Kobe, I know, gotta laugh. We got to. And Kobe Pruitt's with us today.
He says, I'm concerned that EDC is not moving like a GM that believes we have a real chance to win next year. It feels like we're trying to set up a 2027 run. The teams around us are being way more aggressive. Well, that's interesting because he was obviously aggressive with Max. Obviously, they backed out. I think Trey's one of the more aggressive moves that for EDC, it's about as aggressive as he gets. And for the Ravens, not just EDC, but Ravens history going all the way back to Ozzie. So yeah, that's interesting. That's not what I'm picking up on, but that's what Kobe's feeling.
Thanks, KP. Tony Love's here. He says this would be such an EDC move because we don't like to pay second contracts. So in other words, bye Zay. That's the Jordan Tyson discussion from earlier on, which doesn't necessarily mean, look, you got, you pay Zay and you go draft the number 1 and you got team control for 5 years. So you could do both.
Yep.
DJP's with us.
Says, I'm okay with the corner. Bench Humphrey. It's time. LOL. Humphrey would just be moved inside. I don't know that he'd be benched. He'd go inside. He's already going to move inside.
A-Rod's with us. If we don't take Venga at 14, I'm going to lose my mind. Because this season is all about Lamar's health, and the holes Venga will create for Henry will be insane. Second round, I want pass rushers. Cassius Howell or Zion Young. That from A-Rod, and a 20 spot to go along with it. A-Rod, appreciate you. Sarah, that brings us to Donovan Carter.
I would like to ask DJ why he keeps passing over Venga. But he says, Donovan says, in my opinion, the Ravens are better on offensive line than fans think. There are a lot of unknowns, but we have Ledford, and unlike 77 Voorhees, the current rookies have shown they have technical/athletic ability to start, in my opinion, he says.
My best guess to the question, the hypothetical that you just presented there is I wonder if Daniel's just so familiar with how they measure out BPA in terms of in-house and the strategy that's why he's going away from him. That'll be my guess. Donovan says fans forget we're going to have to rely on the unknowns. Donovan, what do you mean by that? Coach is with us.
Guys that maybe are up and coming?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Appreciate you guys for being with us on this Thursday. We've got over 1,600 concurrents and counting, and a lot of you in the YouTube space. You guys have been showing up as we quickly approach 1,000 concurrents. Like the video on your way in if you could. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership this offseason. Let's bring in the man himself, Coach Coleman, in the offseason for the first time ever. So that's new. And what's definitely new is your setup. What's going on, Coach?
I know, right? I both upgraded and downgraded the webcam. I got rid of the background green screen and got a new laptop. So I don't know whether it's an upgrade, downgrade, or both.
Well, it's good to have you back with us. And of course, everybody can go check out your work and probably already does at All 22 Films. We'll talk about that in just a bit. We'll talk about what you're going to unveil later on in this segment, which we're very excited about. But let's just dive right in because Trey Hendrickson, as Sarah just noted a couple minutes ago, this was an uncharacteristic splash for the Ravens at that position in free agency at this point in his process and career. And so we all know what's transpired at this point with Max Crosby. I think at this point that is it's been well documented.
I'm over it.
Now I'm sure you are. You of all people, I'm sure are. But as it relates to Trey, we want to know from you, what are the Ravens getting in him? And how much does he have left in the tank? And maybe where are some of the deficiencies against the run? You got all that more planned for us today.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes along the same lines as one of the comments or posts that you read, and I think Sarah responded to, that other teams are more aggressive. I mean, this is a drastic departure for this offseason, in my opinion. Trading away 2 firsts to go get Max Crosby, who I loved, And then 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later, whatever, the next morning after the announcement that the deal was over or broken, signing Trey Hendrickson, who I'm a big fan of for a lot of reasons. I think that this offseason is very different. In my opinion, we do not trade away 2 firsts to get Max Crosby, nor possibly even sign Trey Hendrickson if John Harbaugh is still the coach in 2026. To me, the approach seems radically different. That's just me. I recognize that bringing back John Simpson from 2023, a player that we had in the building before, certainly, there's some familiarity there. In my opinion, we're operating on new ground. And it's one of the things that, I liked the video that Brett Coleman put out recently. I enjoyed it. I think that he missed a couple of, he glossed over a couple of things, like the whole, reliance on veteran edge guys and the signing of Hendrickson. I mean, hey, Brett, 2023, Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy were a pretty big part of what happened there. And I feel like he minimized that a little bit. Otherwise, I really liked the video. I love the ending. I mean, he made a Sisyphus reference, which was really cool. I like the Trey Hendrickson signing a lot. Do you guys, before we do the film?
I love bringing in a sack artist. Yes, because of course, I mean, as it should, a lot of the defensive breakdowns were put on top of John Harbaugh and Zach Orr, and they are not blameless at all. But 2 things can be true at once, in that under Zach Orr, the defense just took a dip, and also he didn't have that guy as a pass rusher who could put pressure on opposing quarterbacks when it came crunch time. And that's what Trey Hendrickson does. He's not Max Crosby. The Ravens still got to figure out setting the edge against the run. But I don't know how you can hate on a guy that just put up all those sacks, and he's got a clean bill of health. It's not like it's a knee or an ankle. It's a core muscle injury. It's recovered. He's passed his physical. I like this signing, and I think people would have liked it more if it weren't for the Max Crosby stuff going down first.
Hey, Coach, I'll just add into this too, and I think hopefully this leads in, to what you have prepared for us well today. Is there a chance that Trey gets to showcase himself as the more well-rounded guy that maybe he didn't have a chance to do so because of the lack of interior presence in Cincinnati? Now, is that assuming that Nnamdi Madubuike is going to get back to his 2023 form? Maybe I'm guilty of that, but I happen to think that he's going to give it a go this year. And you know what you have waiting in the wings as well, the newly extended Travis Jones, who's a load to deal with in there. And who knows what becomes of Aeneas Peebles. There's some familiarity in this new system with Harlan Bauer, who overlapped with him at Duke prior to him transferring to Virginia Tech. And you've got other guys in there as well, and I'm sure they'll draft accordingly. So I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts on that based on what he now has at his disposal along that defensive line.
Missing Madubuike last year, clearly makes Zach Orr's job more difficult, more of an uphill climb. There's a 5 to 7% increase in the climb there from a planning standpoint, and also just getting pressure. We also did not get the same version of Kyle Van Noy as far as production. The previous 2 years, 23 and 24, were spectacular. I'm a huge fan of Van Noy, but that's just reality. I think Trey Hendrickson, first of all, as far as the run stuff goes, when he decides to defend the run well, he does. You can pretty much tell pre-snap by stance. If he's in a very flat stance, reacting to a defender, oftentimes a tight end, then look, he's got super heavy hands. I think you guys, when I was in the waiting room talking about power rushers, Trey Hendrickson most of his rushes are upfield, and I think I've got 5 plays to show, so that'll definitely display that. Having said that, the usage of his hand, his strikes is very violent and sneaky quick. He almost, I don't know if you guys are combat sports people. I am from being a fan, not actively participating. He reminds me of Usyk, the left-handed southpaw that moved from cruiserweight, light heavyweight up to heavyweight, and doesn't look like a heavy puncher, but has a big impact on guys. And, I don't know if that one goes over you guys' heads or the listeners' heads, but sneaky, powerful shots that you think, okay, that didn't hurt the other guy. And next thing you know, the guy's backed up against the ropes and you're like, what just happened? And the only time you really see it is on replay. I have the same thought about Trey Hendrickson and his moves. This is a play from, you guys feel free to interrupt me, on any of those thoughts or anything else. There's a couple of things here. this was week 4 after the Lions came to Baltimore and obviously beat our ass, right? Ran the ball down our throats. So they go to Cincinnati the next week, and they had to use a backup left tackle. So this is a guy, Giovanni Manu, at left tackle, who's obviously a backup, okay? And this was one of the first snaps. I think this is second quarter. They had protected him prior to this. They meaning the Lions by alignment. And what I mean is they spent a lot of time in 12 personnel, and both of those tight ends in the first quarter would be set to the side where to the side where Giovanni Manu was. There's a reason why. Cincinnati's defensive structure last year was oftentimes using Hendrickson as the weak side guy. So what they could do, Detroit, by setting the tight ends to Manu's side, is they could ensure that this didn't happen because Trey Hendrickson would be over here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now you can see on this play, the tight end is actually right there. So where does that set Trey Hendrickson? To Manu's side. And one thing he does really well that I think sometimes people maybe don't talk about enough, myself included. I feel like my screen is a little bit laggy here. Is it smooth on you guys' end or no?
It is.
Fine.
Maybe it's just my computer. One thing he does really great, if you ask me, is he reads on the run. And so what I mean is you're talking about the various release paths of the running back. Let me try to color code it a little bit. I think Montgomery actually kind of steps down here, like in the A gap or the B gap. I've looked at like probably 50 different rushes of his at this point. When these running backs release to the outside, he's doing a bull rush or an inside move. It's almost like he's got eyes on the running back. Oh, he could chip me, so I'm not going to go. The path of least resistance, like water, right? And here we've got the running back going to the inside, and it's an outside move for Hendrickson. I know that other guys in the NFL do this. What I'm saying is I find him to be, even at the NFL level, exceptional at reading on the run. And, along with the burst, the get off, the mentality, he's a little bit of a jerk on the field. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. I mean, he talks a lot of stuff and brings an attitude. Mike Nolan, even on whatever the Ripken guy's name is, I forget his first name.
Ryan, yeah.
Ryan, excuse me. Earlier in the week had Mike Nolan on talking about that. And I thought that was fascinating to talk about Trey Hendrickson as a rookie, was getting in fights with people in camp, not practices again with another team, combined practices, dual practices, whatever, but his own teammates, as a rookie. And I like those kind of guys. I didn't want to like him with the Bengals. Let me rephrase that. Especially in 2021, right? When they come to Baltimore and destroy us that day, week 7, week 8, whatever, that was eye-opening. Trey Hendrickson is a big part of that.
So basically this the choir boy press conference, introductory press conference, is not something that should be taken out of context, right?
Not with the helmet on and the pads on. Some guys are different, in competition. I think we've all been there. And I like his approach. I do. I think maybe we need a little bit of that. Mentor is, and obviously Weaver, they're going to be in charge. No one's going to dominate the room. But I feel like when the lights are on and the pads and the helmets are on, it's this guy's show. And I think he's got a real edge to him.
He seems to flip a switch, that's for sure. 1 minute he's up there with his wife, he's thanking his Savior Jesus Christ, and the next minute, like you said, he puts on that helmet. And we had Kelsey Conway here who covers the Bengals on a daily basis, and she's like, he's just a stubborn, hard-headed, no-nonsense guy. He's like, He's not the guy that you're going to love at the media press conferences, but once he gets on the field, you're going to love him.
And I think he's very efficient with his moves. I do find him to be a little bit predictable with his rushes, to be honest with you. And what I mean is I think he's better standing up. I think he's got a more variable rush path when he's standing up. When he's in a 2-point stance, to me, I feel like there's a little bit more bull rush inside move tendency. Kind of related to what I talked about. Notice there's, no running back here, but along with the awareness of no running back to his side, along with the awareness of the running back or the tight end's path post snap, he's also got great awareness during the play. And so what I mean is this is 2023 film, I think, against Carolina. We're in the middle of the play. I think he knows, okay, I'm not going to be able to turn this corner and actually sack. That's Andy Dalton, by the way, back there at quarterback. I think he's got great awareness during the play of recognizing what I need to do to be able to impact the play here, swiping with his hand to be able to get the arm, the ball. It leads to an interception by Von Bell I'm a huge fan. I think people can probably hear that in my voice. The burst, the get off, the athletic skills, all of that is tremendous. He kind of a little bit reminds me of Van Noy, not as a pass rush guy, but with his ability to adjust during the play and maybe recognize things in a split second and react to it in a way that maybe you can't even coach.
Coach, how do you feel about him being able to keep this up at a little bit older? I mean, he still hasn't hit 30.
Yeah.
What do you think about, it being a 4-year deal? Do you think he can keep up this type of production?
Turns 31 before the beginning of the season, or
yeah,
if I remember,
December, I believe.
Okay, during the season turns 31. Is that right?
I'll get it for you right now. He'll be 32. He'll be 32 next December.
Oh, okay. So it turns 32.
Got it. He is post 30.
Yeah.
Yep.
To my knowledge, the 4-year contract isn't set in stone. We have an out at some point, I think, right?
I think they said for 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't anticipate us having to move off of him, unless injuries are a factor. We get the same guy that we saw 23, 24, and even parts of 25. This isn't 25 film that I have loaded up here against the Chiefs. This is, I think he's one of the reasons why the Chiefs, drafted this guy, Sua Matea, 2 drafts ago at this point, and then moved him to guard because these plays against Hendrickson, at least the film that I had, he basically embarrassed the guy. You got another example where he's got the running back to his side. And I'm going to slow this down. I know I run this back and forth many times. I don't know if that's helpful for you guys or not. Definitely. Look at the running back's path, and then how he adjusts his step back in to the tackle as the running back is, theoretically looking in his direction. I think Hendrickson has awareness of that and turns it into what we would refer to as speed to power. Basically, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Trey Hendrickson's rushes are always predetermined. I think you've got a little bit more adjustability than some players who have a predetermined rush path that they're going to use, either from game situation, scouting, or what the coach has asked for. But to respond to your question, Sarah, I just don't see any rationale or reason why he couldn't continue to produce, maybe not at the 17 sack a season rate. But of course, at this point, I'm a fan. I'm a fan to the third power now since he signed in Baltimore. I feel free to actively root for him, whereas couldn't do that when he was rooting for the Bengals. I really like his game. I like the force that he plays with. And again, the combat sports analogy I made earlier, he's just sneaky quick with his hands. I feel like I don't like this view. When I watched film of guys like him, Max Crosby included, but Max Crosby's an alien. I would prefer to be able to see the edge rushers from the opposite view, behind the offense, because I want to see the hand strikes and appreciate them. In this case, you got, speed to power. So just bullying the guy. He's great with his outside arm. And I think he plays, for years it was Sam Hubbard on the left for the Bengals defense, and it was Hendrickson on the right. I think his reactions from either side are really good. Don't get me wrong. I would be tempted if I was involved in any capacity to say, I'd like to see him on the right, because I feel like his reactions there are instantaneous and instinctive. They're ingrained, like, again, a combat sports guy who's been, a right-handed fighter for decades. And I want to keep them there because that's where they're most effective, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you've watched 50 rushes per set.
Roughly.
You've saved 50 rushes so far. You've watched probably triple, quadruple that?
I mean, I don't know. Somewhere in that, probably, triple digits, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that was play number 3, I believe, rush number 3 that you've shown. Where to next?
Same thing, except now we got the reverse angle, kind of what I was referring to. And again, I tried to package these with the running back to his side, except for that Carolina play, right? The second play that I showed, the running back to his side. And I think you're getting, this is a mismatch that's not repeatable, because Sua Matea has been moved to guard, and obviously it's Joe Thuney at left guard for the Chiefs, and he's since moved on. But the awareness of the running back release is something that I'm going to continue to pound, because he's a guy that I think you can use anywhere, and some players you can give them one read and rely, 90 to 92%, 93% reliability that they're going to read it well. I think Trey Hendrickson is a guy that can read and respond to the tackle and read and respond to the running back at the same time. And I don't have a technical way of explaining that other than through watching the film, enough of it. I'm not smart enough to pick up on it the first 5 times it's there. It probably takes me 20 or 25 iterations of it. But again, you've got another example of it where the running back looks like he's releasing to the outside, right? Remember David Montgomery's path. He was like A gap, B gap. Here we've got the running back releasing outside, and again, he turns it speed to power, but now it's the inside arm. Both arms are capable of upending, uplifting, and moving offensive tackles. In this case, it's the left arm. On the previous play that I showed you, it was the right arm. By the way, he's being face masked here from Sua Matea. His
yeah, he is.
You'll see it. You'll see it here. I mean, the quarterback is there, and his face mask is here. I think this is a very violent football player. All the stuff with the introductory press conference and talking to him and being a nice guy, I think that's real. I'm not saying it's fake. I think it's just compensation for the fact that he knows who he is when he puts the helmet on and the pads on. I would like to see him be at 62 to 64% of the overall snaps so that we get max effort. Poor word choice there by me, obviously, but we get incredible effort on every single snap. He's not Crosby, who can play 100% of the snaps at that effort level. That's total alien behavior. I don't think that he can give that. He was at, I want to say he was between 65, 70% of the snaps in Cincinnati, generally. Last year was different because the injury concerns. Core muscle on which side was it? Does anybody know?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah. I mean, we have to trust that. Well, the Ravens apparently do their due diligence on the medicals, right? So we have to trust that we've
apparently.
Yeah. No kidding.
We've got a guy who's healthy. I love the film. He's one of those guys that I feel guilty sometimes spending so much time watching the film because it's so enjoyable. I will tell you, Jalen Hawkins was another one. The more film I watched of Hawkins, the more I was like, oh my, this is an extremely effective and smart football player. Last one.
Coach, had they not, sorry to interrupt, but had they not gone in the direction of what was a clear upgrade in Byard, they probably would have wanted to keep him in-house. He had a good year for them.
Hawkins?
Yeah.
Yes.
They get Byard, which I think is hard to turn down, but Hawkins still a young player. And knowing, I mean, that dude was around the football for New England. He led them in a lot of ways on the back end of that defense en route to a Super Bowl appearance.
Very intelligent, far more multiple than I thought. From preparing for the Super Bowl, obviously from a Seahawks perspective, I watched the film and I was like, okay, I feel like he's a guy who drops down sometimes into the box or near the box, but generally plays free safety, and that, the Seahawks would have liked to have tried to exploit in-man coverage. I still feel like there's some truth to all of those things, but the first of all, ability to get to the football. He's the guy that forced the fumble by Derrick Henry, by the way, in our game. Zay comes down and pins him down. He spins out of it. Him and CD3 kind of sandwich Henry and force that fumble. He gets to the football. He's very violent. I think he was probably the best safety on the Patriots team, to be honest with you.
And yet they get him for 2 years, 10. I mean, that's good value there by Picasso.
It's almost, it's a poor comparison to put him in the same light as this guy, but it almost reminds me of the below market value that Derrick Henry signed here 2 off seasons ago. I mean, I remember the day that he signed, I was like, how did we get him for that amount? And, not that you two need to hear this or are going to have the time to go watch it, because I know Bobby's going to be busy in the next 36 to 48 hours. But I did a video, actually 2, on Derrick Henry after he signed, where I was like, this is the best free agent signing in the NFL this cycle. I don't think Trey Hendrickson is the best signing, okay? But what I do think is, for our team, that we didn't have Max Crosby anymore, it's the best fit for us in that his strength, I think you guys were talking about it when I was waiting, his strength is something that was a clear weakness for us last year.
Yeah.
And if Minter is anything like McDonald, which I think there's similarities there, but they're not the same guy. If he's anything like McDonald, he wants to rely on the 4-man rush. And this is a guy who is a finisher, is a game changer, and in a 4-man rush situation, he can win his battle. When I did the video on Hendrickson, I don't know, how long ago was it that he was signed? Feels like a month.
Literally like
last week.
Not even 10 days yet. Like,
I don't know if it's because free agency this year has been so chaotic, or if it's all of the work that myself and others did on the website, but it just seems like so long ago. I think that Minter and the Ravens staff, Weaver, are relying on Hendrickson's ability to win in 4-man rush situations and get another coverage guy, the 7th player, allocated to the coverage. Very similar to what McDonald does in Seattle and what I see a lot of with Minter, the film from the Chargers. I didn't have any run plays here, Bobby. Sorry. I know you asked me about it twice, but I do not have the same concerns. I just don't. When we need to stop the run, if we want to, Tavius Robinson's the best bet for us to throw out there, number one. Number two, when he gets in a flat stance, I mean, this is not a flat stance. I'm talking about an even stance where the feet are even. Trey Hendrickson plays the run well enough for me. I've got film from 23 against Tennessee, Cincinnati and Tennessee, that I was like, okay, there's 6 or 8 really exceptional plays against the run here. I think he uses most of his energy to rush the passer. I think that's what we want him to do. I would have no trouble with him being off the field on some 1st and 10s, even though we're paying him a lot of money. I don't know. Maybe other people feel differently.
Well, just to be clear on the question that I was trying to ask, it was, do you think now with what he has at his disposal, meaning alongside him, which he hasn't had the privilege of in Cincinnati, assuming that Nnamdi's back, assuming that Travis Jones continues to take a step, right, and the rest of what they have in that depth chart, I mean, it's got to make his life easier and more efficient in that category against the run, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's the talent around you, and Cincinnati was really poor on defense last year, and in fact, the last year that Anarumo, was there, they weren't very good either, which was tough for me to swallow because I've been a big fan of Lou Anarumo, which is it's weird. I'm a Ravens fan, but I was appreciative of what he did there starting in 2021. I think Trey Hendrickson was a big part of it. Came over from the Saints, 13.5 sacks in New Orleans in 2020, came over to the Bengals in 21, and they were a drastically different team. I mean, they made the Super Bowl, right? And, Von Bell, Bates, the safety, was a big part of that. To me, Hendrickson's attitude, the way that he approaches the game, you could kind of see it in that Bengals team. I know, the inside linebackers were a part of it. Pratt, Logan Wilson. I'm glad we've got him. I think it's an A+ signing, even though the age and the injury last year I recognize is a real factor.
Coach, just kind of a follow-up to that and then a new question. So just to be clear, when you say you're not as concerned about him against the run, is that because you're fine with taking him off and bringing in Tavius Robinson, or do you think the commentary on his run defense is overblown?
A little bit of both. I think that oftentimes, we all do it, myself included, someone's relative weakness doesn't mean that it's an actual weakness. When if it was a Madden game, his pass rush skills, his burst, his finishing ability would all be like 92 plus. And what would the run defense rating be? Like 84, 85, somewhere in that range. I don't know. I don't play Madden. Don't have time for those things now. But point being, it would still be high, but it would be a relative weakness compared to the numerical assignment for, his pass rush ability. I don't think he's a weak run defender. That first came up when Lions fans were discussing or talking about bringing in Trey Hendrickson, and I said flatly, he would revolutionize your defense. You would have another pass rush option besides Aiden Hutchinson, which they haven't had really at all during Aiden Hutchinson's 4-year career. So I love the signing. Again, I think it's A+. I recognize the age is a concern for some people. We could be here a year from now and we could either A, have a Super Bowl title, or B, Trey Hendrickson could have 15 plus sacks. And we could say, hey, look at how we got him for, quote, below market value.
Sarah, you got one more before we hear about what he's cooking up?
You kind of already spoke to it. We had just played a clip from Daniel Jeremiah, who obviously is a former Ravens scout, and I think he did Chargers radio, so he followed the LA week to week, and he was just saying how Trey Hendrickson isn't the typical prototype that the Ravens go after at outside linebacker, because he described him as more finesse. You're describing him as violent, though.
Well, a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think I know where you're going. I mean, I think that he's technical.
Okay.
And it's mostly outside rushes. That's probably what Daniel is referring to, is that if you know how there's those quarterback completion thermal maps where they
Yes.
throw the ball. It's blue for completion or orange for incompletion, whatever. Trey Hendrickson's would probably be really over-representation on outside rush pass. My guess is that's what he's referring to, is that there's not a ton of speed to power. I did show 2 of them here, but maybe that was over-representation on my part. I think he's capable of any rush path. Don't see too many spin moves. Don't see too many Euro steps, and that's why I say that I think he's efficient. And again, that's why I utilized the Usyk comparison in boxing specifically. Someone who's very classically trained and does things with very low energy output, but is more powerful than maybe the strike looks. I don't know. Does that get to the point that?
Yeah, just that he was implying that he might not be the best fit for Jesse Minter because he relies on the big, tough physical edges in order to have his coverage back there. But you've said, and I agree with you, that you can rely on him for a 4-man pass rush. You don't have to manufacture a lot, which is what they've had to do in the past. He's going to draw a double team. As you've said, he's reading not only the tackle, but maybe the running back, maybe a tight end if they're in there, and he's kind of adjusting on the fly. And I think he's the guy that opens up a 4-man rush.
EA talked about it first, when he texted me the next day or 2 days later, and he was like, have you noticed how Hendrickson's, swats or rips or clubs, they seem to be very tight, but the tackles, the posture gets broken a lot, and it seems to have more impact. And again, that's why I used the combat sports analogy, because it was how did that right hand hurt that guy? I didn't even see it. My untrained eyes had needed slow motion to see how it landed. And I felt like I saw that often enough with Hendrickson. Well, we didn't see that at all with our guys really last year. I mean, our hand strikes were either misplaced or inaccurate or just ineffective, had no impact. And Hendrickson's consistently, break the posture of the offensive tackle in a way that I find surprising.
You've been consistently at it in the lab, and we're excited to, before we let you go,
thank you.
Have you officially unveil, which you already have done on your platforms, what you've been cooking up. So the floor is yours, man. What have you been up to here?
It's not just me, Bobby, to be honest with you. I mean, there's been 12, 13 people who've contributed to this. And I appreciate you guys letting me display this on your channel for however much time I have. But I would like to do this first, other than the beauty of the site. There's so many people who contributed to this. This is a collaborators page. Myself, Jake Howlett, so many Ravens content creators responded in the affirmative. Actually, everyone did. Other people just didn't have time. If there's people's names who you don't notice here, it's not because they, weren't offered. It's just they have other projects they're working on and didn't have time to. But Lions, Ravens, Seahawks people generally, a couple of random people. Chris Aguilera is down there at the bottom. I think we ended up 13 people contributing to the site. And when I say contributing, I mean providing evaluations of players. Maybe some would say, these aren't professional evaluations. Well, you can go read it for yourself and see if you like it. We tried to provide some film as well. And the coding for this, she's probably going to get mad at me, but the coding and creation of this is done by a Ravens fan in our Ravens Discord, whose name is Jen. And it's amazing work for me that I think deserves mention. And so if she gets upset with me about mentioning her specifically, then that's on me. The color coding for me, the day she showed me this, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do justice to something that looks so elegant and so awesome for me? I mean, I'm talking about the color coding of the buttons.
Yep.
And I was blown away. There's all these I was on Jason from Huddled Up Film show last night, and we were trying to figure out what the word is for video games where you discover something that no one tells you about. Easter eggs, right?
Okay.
There's all these little Easter eggs to it that I found myself appreciating. And we've just been super happy with the feedback. What she was able to produce, she dummied it down for me and others. We've got, player search bar where you can filter by position. I think about 100 different players are evaluated, and maybe another 30 or 40 are on here and don't have evaluations. But, it's pretty standard stuff. I think it's got some strengths, player evaluations. I did about 45 myself, and then some film to kind of display what we think these guys are capable of.
It would be fun, Coach, to take us through this real quick. Is there a pick? I'm sure there's several you'd be fine with, But if there was like one ideal pick that you would love for the Ravens, why don't you go to that guy for us and show us
There
how
it
this
is right
works?
there.
Ruben Bain.
I mean, I don't think he's going to be there. I do
Right.
not share the concerns that other people have about, arm length and all of those things. He's been a winner, a dominant player at every level. I don't think he lost a high school football game, 4 consecutive state titles at Miami. Obviously him and Mesidor were amazing. So realistically, you mean?
Yeah, realistically.
Well, Ione is a guy that, clearly deserves mention. I didn't do an evaluation of him, but Will Rock and then Chris Aguilera, who's Chris just joking on Twitter, he did amazing work on the offensive line. Did one that I think really tells you a whole lot about him. So I would refer people to the site. It's draftsignal.pro. We provide film of the offensive lineman once again that was provided by Chris. So this has been a collaborative effort. Even though we signed Simpson, I would like to see us really solidify and be serious about the offensive line. But I recognize that a talent like a Jordan Tyson is enticing and attractive if he's there at 14, which, he certainly could be.
There he is.
Dude, this is fantastic. This is
so
high level
clean.
stuff, man. Good on you and your team and Jen and coach. And there's so many recognizable names that whether it's through the Twitter sphere or that we've had on the program before, you guys really put
it all links out.
Wow.
It all links out like Coach Evans, it links to his Twitter. And so we wanted to, what's the word? We wanted to make sure that anyone who contributed their time, had a way to drive traffic to their social media. Because there was, I'm not receiving any revenue from this. No one else is. So there's no way for us to compensate people for their time. To answer your question, it would probably be Vega because I think he's the best guard. But that could be an overreaction, too, to what we've seen the last couple of years as Ravens fans. That could be an overreaction to the weak guard play that we had. Maybe that mentality that I'm professing for myself, maybe that's not good enough. Maybe the talent evaluators would look at a Tyson or a Sadiq or someone and say, hey, we can't pass up on this guy at 14. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of comfortable with whatever happens at 14, as long as it's not a couple of players that I don't think will have much impact in 26 at all.
I'm with you. We've been talking a lot about this lately. Can you still address not just adequately, but effectively what's been the weakest link in the last 8 months, and that's pass protection in the interior. Emory Jones came on this show when we were at the Combine. I don't know if you've seen his work before. He stood on a table when we were in Indy and told Sarah and I there is no greater combination, no more important combination than guard, center, guard. And right now, you're looking at potentially three different new players among that combination coming in to start and play meaningful football for the Ravens to protect their biggest asset.
100%. 100%. And it's also a little bit of a reaction, maybe overreaction to however you want to refer to it. The previous administration, the previous staff that clearly didn't do their job after 2024, let alone after 2023 when we lost Kevin Zeitler. How far back people want to go talking about it, I'm comfortable with whatever offseason you want to refer to, because I know that myself and others talked about the guard position dating back 2 years. So maybe our infatuation with, is it Ioane? Is that how you say his last name?
Yes.
Maybe our infatuation with that is a reaction to being scarred the last 2 years. I firmly believe, and I think you guys do too, if we give Lamar Jackson time and space, then he's going to be virtually unstoppable. I kind of, would love to see our offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator really focus on offensive line. Have we addressed it enough so far? I think we've strengthened the floor with some of the signings. In worst case scenario, I don't want to say raise the floor, just strengthened it. If 1 or 2 injuries occur, we at least have people who can provide a modicum of execution. But we would, I think, like to, in this draft, raise the floor, not just strengthen it.
And because, Coach, it's guard, center, guard, it's all 3 positions with new faces, even though Simpson has been here and Emory got a couple of opportunities. because it's all three, that's why I don't think it's an overreaction. Like if it were one, like if it were just like, okay, you just got to improve on Fa'alele. Okay, fine. But no, now you improve on that, which is a low bar. Then you just lost an all-pro center and you have inexperience at left guard. So that to me is like, you need to have a stud somewhere in there.
Agreed. And I think this is going to sound unusual, but in this draft, this is nothing about Tyler Linderbaum's ability, who I was a big fan of. There's 5 centers in this draft that you would be comfortable with. You could comfortably say they're better than the guys that we have in the building right now. Bullock and the guy that we brought in from Atlanta. There's 5 centers, I think, that are definitely 4. There's another couple of guys who people have talked about moving to center. I don't know that there's the same depth in this draft at guard. And so for people who say, I don't want to miss on a weapon at 14 and take a guard, I would refer you to Tyler Booker last year. No, do it this way. If we ended up with Tyler Booker from last year's draft, he's an obvious starter for every head coach in the NFL in 2025 except one, who's now in New York. Tyler Booker would have started at right guard for our team. And so to me, I look at Owani, excuse me, I'm going to mess his name up 3 different ways.
You got plenty of time. Starter. 5 weeks. You got 5 weeks until he's selected at 14. Sarah's going to throw a party.
So I think that the guard depth, the quality of depth, how far it stretches in this draft, doesn't go as far as center. So maybe taking a guard early allows you to push that center selection to the 3rd or the 4th round, where we certainly got a lot of picks. I don't know. I'm comfortable. I do trust this administration. I do trust what they're going to do. I think EDC got the message personally. I think the message from Bisciotti that day in January was pretty clear.
Ooh,
he mentioned O-line and he mentioned pass rush. We traded 2 firsts for Crosby, signed Hendrickson. So I think he's got the message, if you know what I mean.
Did Lamar get the message on the extension? That remains to be seen. But
yeah,
Coach, we just updated minutes ago. For a while now, we updated our pinned comment to reflect the URL to the draft signal that you just had up there. We'll also link that in the comment section as well. Let everybody know how they can support it other than just going to use it.
I mean, we would hope that it's a resource for people who are at different levels of or different timing schedules of their study for the draft. People who want to just read about a player, great. People who want to maybe watch some film. The large majority of the storage has been on the offensive line, because you can't just watch 2 plays of an offensive line. You can watch 2 catches from Jordan Tyson and say, okay, that guy's super talented. I don't need to see any more. So the offensive line film that was there was gathered by Chris Aguilera and allowed us to use it. So supporting it by either perusing the site, using it, and sharing it on social media. We're not looking for revenue generation necessarily. We're trying to create something. I'm older than you guys, I think. And so for my generation, creating a website was something that was a little bit out of reach. And so, 14, 15-year-old kids nowadays, they do it with AI in about, 10 minutes and they created a website. Me personally, it's like, a big endeavor in my brain. And to have this type of visual quality handed to us, we just wanted to produce something that respected and justified really Jen's work initially on the front end.
And on top of all this, we've got your YouTube program now displayed on the screen. We just dropped that link, hoping that folks will subscribe and follow your work if they don't already into the live chat. You can be found on X as well at all_22_
Don't read
NFL.
that out, man.
What the hell? What is going on? Can we change that, please?
If somebody could figure out how to change it, then great. I'd like to get it to be all 22 films.
Coach, you're the man. We wish you the best. We'll definitely be using this in the next 5 weeks. And maybe after, as we familiarize ourselves with whoever the Ravens select at 14, should they stay put. So great to see you, man. Thank you for your time today. And congratulations again on the release.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, guys. Have a good afternoon.
Later, Coach. Off-season Coach. Felt good to get him in here, didn't it?
Sure did.
He's awesome. And
good
again,
stuff on Trey Hendrickson for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think, that took a lot of manpower and women power to get that thing done. First of all, he always does great with his breakdowns and cut-ups for us. But clearly that was months in the making. So well done to that team, to that entire crew, including Coach Evans, friend of the program. And again, you can find Coach across all platforms at All22 Films. And go check it out. We have it still pinned in the comment, by the way, the new Draft Signal site, which is going to be a really helpful resource leading up to the final weekend in April. Sarah, Quick Hits begins with Tylan Wallace on his way out. Maybe not a surprise. Spent the last 5 years with Baltimore as a core special teamer. Of course, you remember a couple of those plays. He didn't have the ball in his hands often, but when he did, it was an impact type moment is what he brought to the table, including that walk-off punt return touchdown against the Rams a few years ago. And the catch and run from Lamar somehow finding a way to stay in bounds. Just an exceptional play last year. He's going to Cleveland, so he's not going to go far. He's going to stay within the AFC North. Mary Kay Cabot was first on this, and so he'll reunite with Todd Monken, who's trying to build something as the next head coach of the Browns, Sarah.
And he always took advantage of his opportunities. They were few and far between, but boy, did he make an impact. And you're right, Bobby. I watched the video you posted on Twitter with the overtime punt return against the Rams and then the one against the Bengals, all the yards after the catch. And he just knew how to walk a tightrope, even with people at his feet, hanging on him, running at him, targeting him. So he's one of those fan favorites that it's just like he's under the radar, but then out of nowhere, he lights up the screen. And but now the Ravens have LaJohntay Wester to be their returner. And they're going to move forward and not pay. They're going to go with this rookie contract, and he's going to stay inside the AFC North. So we'll see him again, but hopefully we understand his strengths, which is those sideline runs, and we better take that out from him.
Just a good dude, man. Was he ever not smiling? Good for him.
Smiling.
Hey, when you're a day 3 pick, you never know if you're going to hang around for multiple contracts. And he has done that. So best wishes to him moving forward. They'll see him twice a year from this point on. And he had a nice little farewell note attached on Twitter as well. And this was an iconic photo too. I mean, this has got to be a Sean Hubbard photo right here. Look at Tylan. I mean, look at Arthur over his right shoulder. Arthur Mollett is fired up. Roquan's cheesing on the right-hand side of this graphic. And Tylan says, thank you, Baltimore, to all the coaches, staff, and everyone who has supported and believed in me all these years. I appreciate you all. These past 5 years in Baltimore have truly been a blessing, and I have made memories with the organization and city that will live with me forever. As I continue this journey, I have nothing but love for the city of Baltimore and Ravens organization. I will always and forever be grateful. With much love, signed, Tylan Wallace. Good luck to him. I'm telling you, those 2 plays that you just referenced and I posted earlier today, they're iconic plays. I mean, those are iconic.
One call, by the way, one call is way better than the other.
Well, I know what you're talking about.
Was like electric, and then the one against the Bengals, it was just like a ho-hum play. I'm like, where's the announcer at here, man? Give me some enthusiasm.
Well, I've got you covered. Joe Davis crushed the call on what ended up becoming, I think, the longest completion of Lamar's career. And then Al Michaels was asleep at the wheel.
He was asleep.
Because I think he thought he stepped out of bounds. And when you look at the replay, right. I got to tell you, when you look at the replay, as we did then and we did now, looking back at this earlier today, it looks like he steps out of bounds multiple times. So, yeah, Al did not. He was asleep at the wheel there, which is unfortunate because it was an electric play. Yeah. But congratulations to
But you're right.
Wallace.
When he got in the end zone, he goes, we'll see if he stayed in bounds. Like he wasn't going to get caught up in that. Meanwhile, holy cow, Tony Jefferson just keeps going. We talked about him earlier, a tweet he put up about how he's the last man standing in his class as a safety, as an undrafted safety at that. He termed it the first pick of the 8th round. But he's re-signing with the Chargers again for a 1-year, $2 million deal. And good for him. He had career highs in interceptions, 4. Passes defensed, 7. Did that in 13 games. And so why wouldn't they sign him back? A 1-year, $2 million deal? That kind of production? Bring that man back until the wheels fall off.
Good for him, man. From scouting intern 23 to resurrecting his career and unretiring and still going all these years later. Hard not to root for that guy. just because we've been following the veteran edge market.
Yeah.
Former Bills defensive end AJ Epineza is signing a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million with Cleveland. So he joins the Browns. They're going to see what they can get out of the rest of whatever he has left in the tank. And we referenced this earlier on, and we've made a lot of jokes about it on the collective. But Jeff is not the biggest fan, Jeff Zaribek, that is, of mock drafts, but it's part of the job, part of this time of year when you work for The Athletic. And so while this is far-fetched maybe, and he's admitting to that for sure, there is a scenario, whether it's unrealistic or realistic, that Jeremiah Love, who I know a lot of people like the Mel Kipers of the world think that he is the most talented all-around player in the draft, would be available at 14. Look, we'll believe it when we see it. But Jeff's point here is in his latest mock, and this is how it goes, and the way the board shook out, is that this would truly be a true test of their best player available strategy that they tried to employ on draft weekend. Again, I don't think anybody, including Jeff himself, thinks he'll be there. But if he is, goodness gracious.
Well, if he is, it's because of like people's ideas of value of certain positions. Because Jeremiah Love is electric, and I wouldn't hate another playmaker back there next to Lamar. Again, is it a priority? Is it like the biggest need? Absolutely not. But when you think long term, it's like, woo, Jeremiah and Lamar back there for years to come. Derrick Henry somehow keeps things going, but it's not going to last forever. Having that 1-2 punch with Lamar, that would be electric.
And remember, like, he's the modern day Swiss Army knife at his position. So even if Derrick does have multiple years left, Jeremiah can catch the football and do something with it. So he does it both. And that's why I think, when you look at him from an evaluation standpoint, you're seeing, okay, we're not just investing at the running back position. Mm-hmm. This is a dual type position. He's a pass catcher too. We should be evaluating him, and that should go into our calculations for when it comes to first round draft capital that we're about to spend on a player that is going to come in and instantly give you production and one more quick hit.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, the NFL is trying to finish a deal with all the officials, and they're trying to do their own little CBA of their own, just like they have it with the Players Association. This is the NFL Referees Association. And according to Adam Schefter, the NFL is laying groundwork for hiring replacement officials this season if the league and the NFLRA can't figure it out. I don't care who's officiating. I just need him to get it right. And even above that, I can have some grace for on-field missed calls when things are just so bang, bang. New York's the one that I have a problem with, especially with some of the calls that they made that overruled correct calls on the field.
All right. That brings us to Super Chats on our way out here. Olu writes, question, what if we get the best offensive tackle and put him inside instead of grabbing a guard because Stanley's getting older? What do you think? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. Would Spencer Fano, represent this theory, this scenario that Olu's talking about? I say yes.
I wouldn't say he's the best offensive tackle, but I get your point.
Forecasting what might be happening at the almost midpoint of the draft, I think is a realistic scenario that would maybe make prudent sense. So yeah, Olu, we'll wait and see, but I think that conversation is interesting. And of course, I forget. Sherry is here, who's gifted 5 channel memberships on this Thursday, matching Douglas H. Brown Seniors.
Love it.
From earlier on. Sherry,
love the gift giving.
Appreciate you, Sherry. 5 new members. So let us know if you were on the receiving end of Sherry's generosity, which Sarah brings us to Coopman 35.
He says, correct me if I'm wrong, but Harbs in 18 years has never developed a pass rusher.
That's not true. Matthew Judon comes to mind.
Zadarius Smith, that was all.
Let's see.
Since 2008.
I mean, we're going back. Yeah, you're going back.
I mean, if we're talking interior, I was going to say Brandon Williams, but he was more of a run stuffer. Obviously, Matabike. I don't know. Like, how do you want to define it? I mean, Madubuike was a 3rd rounder. Judon was a 5th rounder. Zajarius was a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
Pernell McPhee.
Okay.
But it's more to me. It's been more a mark on Eric DeCosta's drafting record.
Cool, man. Appreciate you. Others are weighing in. What about Tim Williams, Paul Kruger? Everybody's hitting up the live chat right now. So, yeah. Super chats. Ivan Gunn and Christopher Washington, thank you both for believing in what we're building. We appreciate the support that you give us through Patreon. And this is your monthly shout out because of exactly that. So thank you guys. Hopefully you're enjoying this month of March, 2nd week of free agency and everything else that's happening right now, including March Madness, which takes shape today. Already has been. First 4 has been action.
Yeah.
But today's where it starts to get crazy. It's about to get crazy. Hopefully everybody enjoys. Hopefully your brackets go well and aren't busted on opening night.
I'm
Sarah,
purposely busting mine. Don't you worry.
Sarah's got some thoughts
Got my
about
blue
that.
for BYU today. Come on.
I know it. Best of luck to the Cougars. Best of luck to, let's see, UMBC lost in the first 4. That takes out the Maryland representation.
Yeah.
Best of luck to my hometown Siena Saints against the number 1 seed Duke Blue Devils.
Ooh.
So yeah.
I got Duke going to the championship. I won't say against 2, but I got them go to the championship.
Well, and I know. We talked in the pre-show, and I told you you're going to be in good shape if history repeats itself because all the ones advanced.
Minus.
Well, I'm saying right, but
you're saying from last year?
Yes.
I have a lot of ones advancing along with BYU just to show my kids how much I love BYU.
Yeah.
I'll go down in flames with them. I know what I'm doing. It's just for the family bracket anyway. It's just for fun.
As any fan is willing to do. Go down in flames with their group. That's how it goes. So
we are missing our number 3 player, so that's going to hurt us, but whatever.
Well, hey, safe travels. Enjoy your weekend.
Same to you.
Tell Trevor I said hello.
The wedding, Mr. Best Man.
I was going to say, it was bachelor party.
Bachelor party, I mean. Sorry.
As you knew.
Yep.
And so why don't we just give everybody an update? So, you're going to be solo tomorrow.
Yep.
We will work on, programming for tomorrow. We really want to say thank you to Coach Coleman for his time. That was a great segment on Trey Hendrickson. I'll be back Monday. You'll be back Monday. We'll have a normal week. But you are solo tomorrow. I am in Killington, Vermont this weekend, hoping and praying for not have to join you at 1 a.m. for a blockbuster type of Ravens deal made. We'll wait and see, though. We'll wait and see. All right. So, for Primary Residential Mortgage, for Coach Coleman, for Sarah, I'm Bobby signing off from this Thursday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourselves for March Madness. Sarah, get back safe, and we'll all talk to you guys as a group together. Us, Sarah and I, Monday. Sarah will be back tomorrow to round out the week. Appreciate you guys, and as always, VAULTRONs, thanks for spending some time with us on a Thursday here inside the Vault.